the Real Deal Podcast on this 7th of June, 2021. We're recording this podcast at midnight, 12:19 Eastern. It's at Eastern time, a little late night, early morning podcast that will be out, sometime on Monday. Of course, I'm your host, Cyril Gerald-Quinn, discussing the world of sports and pop culture. It'll be heavy on the sports and probably no pop culture this particular episode, as we are in the thick of the NBA playoffs, which now things have gotten serious, to say the least, in the playoffs, because now the pretenders, the teams that basically had no chance to win a championship, are out, and you're going to see contending teams going against each other, and going against teams that are trying to skip the line and get to a championship or get to a finals or go further than what people may have expected. We'll talk more about it. We'll certainly have our thoughts on what the Atlanta Hawks did this afternoon in Philadelphia. But we begin with Game 7 in LA as the Clippers exercise some demons, not all the demons, because let's not forget that they made it this far. They made it, this far last year. They were in Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals. So they are back where, in essence, they are back where they left off last year in the second round. So I'm not going to say the Clippers exercise all the demons, but they exercised some of them, coming back down 2-0, 2-0, losing home court multiple times during this series, coming back from three down 3-2, winning the last two games of this series in the last 4 out of the last 5. That was, before we get to this game, the Game 6 performance out of Kawhi Leonard was an epic performance, to say the least. I think it, frankly, was his best. I can make a case, man. I guess you can, between that and Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semis against Philly a couple years ago, those are his two best playoff games. Now, you can go either one. The Philly one was a Game 7 against a better team in Philadelphia. That was a loaded Philadelphia team. Of course, he had the theatrics of the game-winning shot. So I can see you making the case that being his best playoff game in his career. But the one on Friday, he shoots 18 for 25. That was a tightly contested game. That was a real playoff game from a defensive standpoint. 104-97. Clippers played great defense in that game. Buckets were at a premium in that game. That was not a high scoring game like this was like this Game 7 was. So that, I was impressed with that performance on Friday as much as even more so than the one in the Game 7 back 2 years ago. But regardless, he was phenomenal in the last two games of the series. For the series, he, basically was 33 and 33 points and shot close to 62% from the field, which is, just off the charts. And he did what he had to do to get his team to the second round. I'm not going to knock Dallas for blowing a 2-0 series lead or the 3-2 series lead, because Dallas, let's be honest, look at that roster. Really look at that roster. That they really, they are not a championship team. You have a roster, and you look at this game, the difference is the depth between the two teams, the depth in terms of depth of talent. I mean, Clippers get 51 points from Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson, and Terrence Mann. 51 points. Dallas in this game really only played 5 guys heavy minutes. Carlisle really only trusted 5 guys. His 5 starters played the majority of the bulk of the minutes. Only guy that played double figures outside of a starter was Jalen Brunson, who only played 10 minutes. The rest of those guys, Clensa, Josh Richardson basically were just, Trey Burke. Trey Burke is playing minutes, and if Trey Burke is playing minutes in a game 7, you got problems. That's all it is to it. You got major problems. So really, everything was exposed. All Dallas's problems were exposed in this particular game. Too dependent on Luka. You have a guy in Porzingis who is a max role player at this stage in his career, ends up, for this series averaging like 13 points a game. Spent a lot of his time shooting long jump shots or being basically a decoy over the course of this series. I mean, their second best player in the playoffs, in essence, was Tim Hardaway Jr. And if Tim Hardaway Jr. is your second best player, then you're not going very far. The performance by Luka Doncic was, to say spectacular doesn't do it justice. It was a legendary performance. And I'm not, when you talk about 46 points, 14 assists, and 7 rebounds, he did everything that he could possibly do to keep that team in the game, to keep that team afloat. 29 points in the first half. But again, we've seen this movie before with great players. We saw it with Jordan, saw it with LeBron. It doesn't matter how singular your talent is in the NBA. You don't have that second guy. You're not winning anything till you get some help. And I just don't. It's just not happening. That's just the way. That is the history of the NBA. We've seen some of the greatest singular talents of all time not be able to win a playoff series. Remember, Michael Jordan didn't win a playoff series until 1988. Came to the league in 84. So he lost his first 3 playoff series to Milwaukee in 85 and back-to-back years with Boston, 86 and 87. And of course, in 88, they got Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and that was kind of like the beginning. They got their first taste of a playoff win, and the rest is history. So we've seen this movie before with great players, and Luka's no different. Like, he ends this, through 12 playoff games, all against the Clippers. He's basically 32, 9, and 9, shooting 48% from the field, 38% from the 3-point line. And frankly, before I get back to the Clippers, Dallas is on the clock. Let's be honest. Dallas is on the clock with Luka. Luka will sign a max extension in the summer. He's extension eligible in the summer. He's going to sign that, no question. 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, $195 million, because he's going to be all in. Because he's going to be all NBA first team for the second straight year. So he'll get the max extension, and they'll have about 2 years to get this roster right before he demands a trade. That's how this thing is going to go. And with Dallas, the thing Dallas has going against them is they had one of the worst contracts in basketball in that with Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis is due $101 million over the next 3 years. No one in their right mind with Porzingis' injury history would dare touch that contract until 2023. Minimum at the earliest 2023. Because in 2023 he'll have only one more year. In the summer of 2023, so he has 23, 24, 22, 23, 24. So yeah, in the summer of 2023, he'll have 1 year left on the contract. So that is more enticing when a guy has an expiring contract, no matter what the situation is, because you receive that money, you can take that money off your salary cap following when that guy hits free agency. So it'll become more enticing for somebody. It'll be tradable in 2023. It's not tradable this year. It's not tradable next summer. Period. So now what Dallas has little to no flexibility whatsoever. I mean, they're going to probably have to sign Tim Hardaway Jr., who's a free agent. They're going to have to hope that Porzingis comes back and somehow returns to the form that he had back before all the injuries when he was in New York early in his career, or they get incredibly lucky in the NBA in the draft. Even if Luka gets better, which Luka will get better, that team is maybe they can win a round. Maybe they can get to the conference semifinals, especially in the Western Conference. Like right now, Denver's better and has a brighter future. The Clippers are better. The Lakers are better. Utah is better. I think I'm leaving out a team. That's also I know I'm leaving out a team. Phoenix is better. And I fully expect Phoenix to resign Chris Paul in the offseason. I don't think he's going anywhere. So, I just don't see a way. I don't see a lot of light at the end of the tunnel for the Dallas Mavericks, moving forward. Again, unless and think about this. And the NBA over the last decade, we've seen a lot of unhappy stars. We've seen stars just all of a sudden just want to be traded. Things fall apart. That is destined to happen again this year or the following year or the next year. I mean, it's going to happen. It's just the way these guys just don't stay in one place for a sustained amount of time. It doesn't matter because Dallas does. What do you have to trade? Dallas doesn't have the assets to acquire a unhappy star. They don't. Sixers have Ben Simmons, 24 years old, all-star, all-NBA caliber player with a good contract and some draft picks. Dallas has next to nothing to acquire that type of player. And again, Luka Doncic, there are two things Luka did that I loved after the game was over. One, he refused to take Paul George's to do the whole jersey swap, which is corny. It was just the corniest shit that's in sports right now. Just whole jersey swap. Soccer, I understand. It's a soccer tradition, so I'm not going to knock soccer because it's a tradition. But somehow it has made its way to American sports, to NFL. You see it in the NFL, you see it in the NBA. I can't stand it. It drives me crazy. It's one thing if a guy's retiring at the end of, Dwayne Wade did it at the end of his career in the guy's last game. That's one thing. But you tell me after Game 7 of a playoff series, if I want a jersey swap and my team's lost, like hell no. No. Shake hands, give pleasantries, good summer, and keep it moving. And I'm glad. And Luka, I'm sure was respectful with it in terms of with Paul George, but it's like, no, he's like, nah, I'm not about that life. I want to win. I'm trying to win championships. And in the press conference, Luka said that people were bringing up his stats. I think it was Tim McMahon asked him a question about his stats and, just how insane they were, which is true. They are. His stats are insane. He averaged basically like 35, I think Luka was like 35, 10, and 7 in this series. But Luka basically said it doesn't matter because we didn't win. It's about winning. So he has the perfect mindset from that standpoint. The thing Luka has to improve, and he could obviously with the 3-point shot, he definitely has to improve that. He can be a 38% to 40% 3-point shooter. He has to get in better condition. He came in the league. He came into this season out of shape. He could lose about 10 to 15 pounds. Like he could lose about 10 pounds. And let's be honest. Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with him not finishing games well in the fourth quarter, struggling in the fourth quarter. I don't know how much the two coincide, but he definitely could be in better shape, which is scary for the rest of the NBA. He's 22 years old. He's 22 years old. So, again, Dallas goes home for the second straight year at the hands of the Los Angeles Clippers in the first round. Clippers advance. You're going to see some people on the Clipper bandwagon. I'm not quite there yet because all they did was what they were supposed to do, and that's to beat a team that they were superior to and get to the second round. So this is not the end all be all for a team that has championship aspirations, for a team that has 2 of the top 15 players in the world on their roster and a talented roster at that. Give Ty Lue credit. Like, Ty Lue took a lot of shit. Doc Rivers took a lot of shit last year with some of the moves that he did make and them blowing that lead. Ty blowing the 3-1 lead to Denver. Ty Lue made the adjustments, went small, had Batum at center, took Patrick Beverley out this series because Patrick Beverley could not play in this series. He went to Reggie Jackson. That paid off. Reggie Jackson hit some big shots in these last 2 games, and particularly made probably the 2 biggest shots in this. He made a big 3 that kind of put the game away in this game. Went with Terrence Mann. So he pressed all the right buttons, 4-0 in game 7s. So that you cannot dismiss that aspect that he is 4-0 in game 7s in his career and has won a championship. So give Ty Lue credit. We'll see what happens. They play Utah next. I don't have right now. Don't have a great feel of that series as at this moment. Give me a couple of days to kind of process that series. But still, it should be definitely a competitive series. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with how Utah deals if the Clippers decide to go small in that series. The other game today, before we get to Milwaukee, Brooklyn last night, Atlanta, Philadelphia. Atlanta comes in, shocks Philadelphia. And this is a game that it's a wild game, to say the least. First of all, Philadelphia's performance. Philadelphia should be embarrassed with their performance in that game today. You're Philadelphia. You come out. You are the number 1 seed. You have championship aspirations. You're facing a team that I want to say probably came into that game just happy to be there, and you go out there and allow them to put 42 points on the board in the first quarter, 71 and a half. Atlanta goes out. Atlanta makes 23s. Yeah, Atlanta shoots 20 or 47 from 3-point range. Trae Young is the best player on the floor, and next thing you know is Atlanta is winning game 1 of that series, 128 to 124. They completely controlled the game from start, basically almost to the finish. We'll talk about the finish in a minute because it was that was some of the worst game management that you'll ever see. But listen, Atlanta flat out outplayed them. They kicked Philadelphia's ass. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. With Embiid, you told me that Embiid was going to play and score 39 and get 39 and 10. I would have told you that Philadelphia was going to win by at least 15 points. And now Atlanta has to believe that they can win the series. Because if you're Philadelphia, you have championship aspirations. You're playing a team that you're clearly better than. You're playing a team that is young, up-and-coming team. This is new to them. You want to win a championship. And you always, to me, as the home team, should come out with a sense of urgency in game 1 to, solidify home court advantage. Now, again, I still think Philadelphia is going to win the series, but frankly, it's going to be a dogfight. Atlanta's winning one of the 2 games in Atlanta. Period. This is going to be, at minimum, at worst, a 6-game series now, in my opinion. Danny Green cannot play in this series. Trae Young basically almost put him into retirement. Again, Doc Rivers, waits until the second half to make the adjustment to put Ben Simmons on Trae Young. Ben Simmons did a decent job on Trae Young. Did pick up a couple of fouls, but at least slowed him down somewhat in that third quarter. That kind of allowed Philadelphia to get back in the game. But Danny Green had no chance in that game. Thibault came in, did a decent job, made some shots. I'm saying right now, I would go heavy on Thibault. Danny Green played 30 minutes. Game 2, I'm having a quick hook from Doc Rivers in regards to Danny Green. Danny Green is not making shots, then he is of no use to be on the floor. I mean, seriously, he's like because Thibault could do that. First of all, Thibault's going to play better defense, and like the reason why Danny Green is getting the minutes. Obviously, he's a veteran that's won championships, won 3 championships, and the reason why he's on a team like Philadelphia and he's always on a good team because he's a good veteran player that's been there before and has a ton of playoff experience. But if he's not making shots at this stage in his career, his defense is okay. He's not the defender that he once was back when he was with San Antonio or even 2 years ago with Toronto. He's not that player anymore. And he's older. I mean, Danny Green's been in the league for a minute now. Danny Green has to be about, I want to say Danny Green is 30, 35. He went to North Carolina all 4 years. Danny Green is 35, 36 years old. He's been in the league for a minute. Came in the league in 2009. Yeah, he was in the 2009 draft because the year North Carolina won a championship. So he's been in the league since 2009. So maybe he's not 35. Maybe he's about 34. But he's got some miles. He's got a lot of miles. I've played in a ton of playoff games, been in a number of finals games. Again, is a good guy to have on your team as experience. He's still a rotational guy. He's still a rotational guy in this league, but in this particular series, I don't know if he can play the same. I would have a hook if I were coaching, if I'm Doc Rivers. Thibault came in and actually made a couple of shots. And we know Thibault is one of the 10 best, probably one of the 5 best perimeter defensive players in the league. Thibault is a top perimeter defender in this league and probably will certainly make second team All-NBA. Now we get to the ending. So Atlanta is running away with this game. And for some reason, again, I would just baffle me, just completely just baffling to me. Atlanta has last 2 minutes of the game had no timeouts. Philly goes on this just ridiculous run. They force a number of turnovers. And Atlanta had trouble inbounding the ball, let alone getting it past half court. They got the lead at one point down to 2. Atlanta makes a couple free throws. Philly misses a shot, and then basically that was basically the game. That basically was the game. Bogdanovich hit a big 3 to kind of put the icing on the cake, but that game should have never even came down to that. First of all, I don't understand how you could run out of timeouts in a situation where you are up by double digits for about 90% of the game. Like, I just don't understand how you could possibly run out of timeouts. And to my knowledge, I don't think they lost any challenges. I don't think Atlanta lost any challenges in that game. Please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong on Twitter or Instagram when I put this up. And then you have a situation where you're fouling Ben Simmons and you're up 2 possessions. You're up by 8 points. You're up by 6 points, and you're fouling Ben Simmons, and it almost cost them. So one situation they foul him, he goes to the line, he misses one, he makes one, misses one. On the miss, Embiid gets the offensive rebound and puts it and gets a layup and turns it into a 3-point play. Again, Ben Simmons is this is how horrible of a free throw shooter Ben Simmons is, that teams are losing their minds and just going batshit because they can't wait to get into the fourth quarter and foul and go hack a Ben, even when they're up. We saw the Wizards do it and it backfired in their last game in their previous in game 5 of that series. This game it backfired because again, you are up in the game. You're up. I don't like the clock is your friend. I don't want to stop the clock when I'm winning the game and I'm up in the fourth quarter. I'm sorry. If I have a lead in the fourth quarter, I'm not doing a hack of anything. It makes zero sense to me. That is a strategy to do if you're trailing, you're trying to get back in the game. It is not a strategy to me when you're up in the game, when you're winning. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get the philosophy of it. I don't get what coaches are thinking. I've seen coaches. I've seen college coaches do it. I've seen it done. I've seen coaches from at all levels. I mean, college and pro. I haven't seen it in high school, but college and pro definitely do it. So I just don't get it in a game when you are winning the game. And again, the timeout situation is just something that Nate McMillan, like you can't run out of timeouts in a game where you're up by double digits throughout the majority of the game. There's no way you should run out of timeouts. The NBA has it's almost impossible to run out of timeouts in the NBA period. It's almost, you know how hard it is to run out of timeouts in the NBA game. With that being said, again, you have to give Trae Young all the credit in the world. He played a tremendous game, 4 straight 30-point games on the road. John Collins played well. Bogdanovich made some big shots. Again, Atlanta, made 23s in the game. And, give Atlanta credit. Like Atlanta clearly is not satisfied with just winning one round. They are a fun team to watch. I still think Philadelphia wins the series, but it's gonna be a dogfight. Big picture on Ben Simmons. I've been a Ben Simmons fan since he came to the league. I think Simmons is a tremendous player. He's an all-star player. Has been all NBA before in his career, third team. You can't have your starting point guard long term shooting 50% from the line and shooting a liability. You can't have a situation where teams want to foul your starting point guard. You just can't and I don't know what it's going to take for Philadelphia to move off Ben Simmons in the offseason. Maybe if they lost this series, that would probably be the nail in the coffin. But I just don't think that you can. And I picked Philadelphia to get to the finals, but I've seen enough with Ben Simmons in these free throws. It's just there's no way that they're beating the Nets or Milwaukee if Ben Simmons can't make free throws down the stretch of the game. It's just not going to happen. So that is something that they have to look at in the offseason real hard, unless they win a championship from an organizational standpoint. Unless they win a championship. You win a championship, then it's like, okay. But if the idea is to win a championship, which I think it is, because bottom line is you don't know how many good years Embiid has left with his injuries. You just don't know. You really don't. You have to treat these years almost like the Lakers have to treat LeBron, to be honest. Because Embiid's body is probably the same age as LeBron physically. That's where he probably is at from a physical standpoint. So we'll see what happens in game 2. So Atlanta kind of pulling off the upset in game 1. In regards to what happened Saturday night with Milwaukee and Brooklyn, to me it's simple. Number one, I don't want to hear about the Harden injury from a standpoint of I don't want to hear any excuses if Brooklyn doesn't win a championship. Because what were the odds that all 3 of these guys were going to go through a grueling playoffs coming off a condensed season and be healthy? We saw they only played 8 games all year long. There was a strong possibility that all 3 of these guys were not going to be healthy going to go through the playoffs. Now, I would have bet money at the beginning of the season that it would be Kyrie Irving, not James Harden or even Kevin Durant. Brooklyn still has the best team in the league. They still have the most talent, even without James Harden. The one guy they cannot afford to lose would be Kevin Durant. You can win a championship with Harden, Durant, with Durant, Irving. You're not winning a championship without Kevin Durant. So if it were James Harden, Kyrie, no, that they wouldn't win the championship without Durant. But Harden is, they can win a championship without James Harden, period. Milwaukee played in the second half probably one of the dumbest games that you will ever see, considering the shot selection, considering the fact that first half you score 61 points, you're going inside, they have no answer for Giannis, they have no answer for Brook Lopez, and all of a sudden you go three-point happy and end up doing that. I think Milwaukee ended up like 6 for 30 from three-point range. They were 4 for 19 at half. And they ended up like 6 for 30. Brooklyn shoots 15 for 40. And listen, if you're Milwaukee, look at Durant and Irving. They got their points. They have 54 between them, but they took 51 shots to get them. So you're fine with that. Like, you would take that lack of efficiency. These, Durant and Irving are two of the most efficient players at their respective positions in the league. They shot well over 50% during the season. Irving was a 50-40-90 guy. Durant shot 54% during the regular season. So if you put those guys under 50% shooting, you've done a great job. You've done your job. The problem is you can't give up 49 points to Blake Griffin, Mike James, and Joe Harris. You have no chance if their role players are that dominant. I mean, you can't get Blake Griffin getting 18 and 14 like that. That just can't happen. Even without Harden, that can't happen. Milwaukee got nothing out of his role players. Bad night for Middleton, 6-23. I thought Drew Holiday was fine. I had a problem with his performance. Remember, he has the guard as well. Giannis, 34 and 11. But the problem is he took too many jump shots and didn't spend enough time in the paint. Giannis in this series could easily average 40 to 45 points a game in the series. They have no answer for Giannis inside. They have zero answer for him. Again, I think the game, Milwaukee is going to have to swallow their pride and just play. You can't play fast-paced. You're not going to beat Brooklyn in a skill game, in a game of skill. Shooting, passing, offense, that's not going to happen. And that's a tough pill for Milwaukee to swallow, because Milwaukee is a great offensive team in their own right. They were averaging like 120 points per game. But if you're Milwaukee, you have to swallow that pill, pound the ball inside, and really force Brooklyn to make a decision, like force them to play DeAndre Jordan. Force Blake Griffin to the bench. That's what should be the goal. You can't take bad shots against Brooklyn. That's almost like a turnover against Brooklyn. It really is. Bad shots are like turnovers against that team. You just can't do it. It fuels their offense. I'll say this about Brooklyn. If they defend, now Brooklyn, to their credit, held Milwaukee to 43 points in the second half. They held them to 43% from the field for the game. Again, they were I think Milwaukee was 6 of 20. I don't know why I could have 6 of 30. I think they were 6 of 20. They shot 20% from three. So I think they were 6 of 30 from three-point line. Brooklyn's defensive rating following the game is 7th. The defensive rating is 7th, and they are they are 4th in terms of opponents' field goal percentage. If those two numbers maintain those stats over the course of the playoffs, the rest of the playoffs, no one will beat them, period. They're going to score. They're going to score. Like they're almost impossible to stop. Your best defense against them is your offense in some cases, in many cases. Your shot selection, going inside, destroying them on the offensive boards. Now, Milwaukee did out-rebound them, but not by a lot. And I thought Brooklyn did a nice job of cleaning up their offensive boards, cleaning up their defensive boards after the first quarter. Milwaukee had 8 offensive boards in the first quarter. They had 7 for the rest of the game. So they did a good job. Brooklyn did a good job of cleaning that up. Again, Milwaukee is going to have to play just a way cleaner and smarter game that they want if they have a chance. If they have a chance in the series, and I believe they do. I picked Milwaukee in 7. I think Milwaukee does have a chance, can win this series, but they're going to play like they're going to stick to the script as far as pounding the ball inside and making sure they play Blake Griffin off the floor. So you have tomorrow. You have Denver. You have Denver, Phoenix, and Milwaukee, and of course Milwaukee, Brooklyn game 2, Denver, Phoenix game 1. Want to get to the Lakers for a second. First of all, give Phoenix all the credit in the world. Devin Booker, 47-11 in a closeout game on the road that's a big time performance, to say the least. Chris Paul, give him a lot of credit, fighting through an injury, leading that team. Booker's their best player. Make no mistake about it. Booker's their best player. But give Monty Williams a tremendous job. Again, leading that team for his first series win. And Phoenix, from the time Anthony Davis went down in Game 4, Phoenix owned this series and dominated the series. That's all it is to it. In regards to the Lakers were up against it throughout the course of the season with injuries, the short turnaround coming off the championship, coming off the bubble, 71 days, a lot of things that went against them. And, to show you how spoiled Laker fans are, this is the first time the Lakers have won a championship and will not repeat since 1985. All the other championship teams after that have repeated with Magic in 87, 88, Kobe and Shaq, 2000, 2002, and of course Kobe, 09 and 2010. So, Laker fans, calm down. You're spoiled. We're spoiled. I don't want to hear about any moves in regards to who the Lakers didn't sign, who the Lakers let go. None of that matters. The only thing that matters moving forward is Anthony Davis. Now, first of all, Anthony Davis shouldn't have played in that game. I don't see how he was cleared to play in that game. Like, it's just insane that he was cleared to play in that game. That's number one. The Laker franchise hinges, the present and the future of the Laker franchise hinges on Anthony Davis. They're going to have to get to Anthony Davis this summer and really have a come to Jesus conversation. LeBron, Clutch, whoever, in regards to Anthony Davis and his conditioning and him really wanting to being the guy to try finding out whether or not he's the guy to lead this franchise in the future. Not a coincidence. Anthony Davis, healthy, dominant, they win a championship. Anthony Davis, in and out the lineup, injured, they get knocked out in the first round. It's not a coincidence. Not at all. LeBron James is no longer at the point in his career to where he can be the best player on the team that can win a championship. He's not there anymore. He spent the better part of a decade being at that place, being that guy. He's not that guy anymore. Can he still play? Can LeBron James be the second best player on the team that win a championship? Sure. I mean, without question. He knows how to he's still the smartest player in the league, knows how to pick and choose his spots, knows how to manage his body. He got injured on a freak, on just a freak play with Solomon Hill back in March. But the bottom line is, this is about Anthony Davis, and they have to fix Anthony Davis. I don't want to hear about trade him. No, you're not trading Anthony Davis, because you would not get, you couldn't get, forget about equal value. You couldn't get Bradley Beal for Anthony Davis. And again, Bradley Beal wouldn't even be enough for this team to be a championship, to be honest with you. So forget about trading Anthony Davis. Nobody's taking Anthony Davis with basically 4 years left on his contract, and with his injury history. And it would be a red flag, the fact that the Lakers would be even willing to move Anthony Davis. There are other general managers out there know what time it is in regards to Anthony Davis and his injury history, period. So this is, to me, listen, LeBron brought him here. He respects LeBron. He idolizes LeBron. LeBron, I don't care. It doesn't matter if he might have to move in with LeBron. It doesn't matter. They have to fix Anthony Davis. That is uno. That is the first, and that is job one for the Los Angeles Lakers franchise. Nothing else matters. I don't want to hear about free agents. I don't want to hear about draft picks. I don't want to hear about Damian Lillard. Anthony Davis is job one. Fix him, or they don't have a future, or the future is going to be bleak for that franchise, and it will go down real fast. Like, they will fall off the cliff quickly. A couple other things before we head out. Of course, Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, the great Duke head coach, is going to coach one more year, retiring after 41 seasons. John Shire, similar to the North Carolina situation, basically, you see Roy Williams and Coach K pick their successors in Hubert Davis and now John Shire, who, of course, one of his ex-players, won a championship with them in 2010 as a player, and has been their coach in waiting for now. This seemingly has been in place for the last 2 years, for the last 3 years. Listen, he's the greatest college coach in history of college basketball. I think he's better than Wooden. Remember, Wooden were winning championships when, they didn't have to play as many games in the tournament, and then they actually, if you go back and do some research, they actually would put other teams on probation who are a threat to UCLA. That was a real thing. Go back and do some research on that. That was a real thing. So yeah, Wooden's a legend, but in the modern era, Mike Krzyzewski is the greatest coach in college basketball history, and one of the greatest coaches in the history of sports, professional or college, period. 41 years, was in the tournament 35 of those years, 15 30-win seasons, 5 national championships, unparalleled success, went back-to-back in 91 and 92, really evolved did something that Bob Knight couldn't do, and that was, evolve and stay and adapt to today's game and today's, athlete, something that Bob Knight absolutely could not do and would not do. And that's why he got out. So, one of a iconic figure in the history of sports. And 70, but this is 74 years old. He's not a spring chicken anymore. You saw Roy Williams retire. Coach K is going to be out. Boeheim, who knows, could be next. Boeheim, Huggins, those guys are kind of like some of the elder statesmen that are still left in college basketball. So kind of like a shift change in the world of college basketball in regards to coaches. In regards to coaches now, like Tony Bennett of Virginia is going to absolutely own the ACC, right? For the foreseeable future. I mean, in a real way. Like that guy is going to own the ACC for coaching Virginia. Julio Jones goes to Tennessee. I don't love the move. I don't hate it. I get that they were short on receivers, but he's 32 years old. He's coming off a season where he missed 7 games, and we're going to be playing 17 games this season. You're going to have an extra game. And the problem I had with a franchise, what I said to you earlier podcast, I think I mentioned this in my last podcast, is a team like the perfect team to sign a Julio Jones would be a team that does not have to depend on him to be their number one and who could afford for him to miss a couple games here and there. Tennessee is not that team. You have A.J. Brown, and that's it. So if Julio Jones gets hurt, then, your depth just plummets as far as your wide receiver depth. Plus, again, they didn't give up much. Like, I can't really go all in on, I can't kill the deal because you only give up a second and fourth to get him. So it's not like you gave up a ton to get him, but it doesn't exactly move the needle for Tennessee. Tennessee offensively was fine last year. They were top 3 in yards per game, and they were the third. They averaged close to 31 points a game. The scoring was not the problem for Tennessee. Tennessee had a problem stopping people. So, again, I understand the premise of it. We know Julio Jones is the all-time great, future Hall of Famer without question. And I think it's still can still be a productive player. It's not like he has had 3 or 4 bad years. Last year he was injured, still put up pretty good numbers, even though he missed 7 games. If he had played those games, he would have had over 1,000 yards and probably double digits in touchdowns. So he's still an above average player. But again, you're hard pressed to be dependent on a 32-year-old receiver who has dealt with injuries. Now, again, to his credit, there are a number of games that over the last 2 or 3 years when he's played that he's been hurt. So he's played nicked up for the past 2 or 3 years, even though the games played might not show because he might not show it in terms of missing games with outside of last year. But he has been nicked up. He's had a lot of nagging injuries the last 2 to 3 years as he's gotten to his 30s. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see what happens in regards to that, but I don't think that's a move that necessarily doesn't put Tennessee over the top because they need a lot of help on defense. That's going to wrap up this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I will see you next time. Enjoy your week. So long.